Hi, this is Timothy Chemo Bryan,
And this is Kyle Bondo.
and you're listening to Podrect, where we help you survive your podcast. This episode, the future is nigh. What's going to happen in 2021? Our special guest, Podstradamus. Hey, folks, we are back here in 2021. I can't believe it. All the Podrec gang is here with us, and we're getting ready to let you know our 20 predictions for 2021. Last year, we did fantastic. This year, I'm going to be putting on my alter ego, Nostradamus. I'm going to be channeling his wisdom into my brain and out through my lips, and we're going to get started on this. So the first one up, and folks, play along at home. It's on the website, podrect.com. You can check out these predictions with us here. Get out your bingo cards, because last year, those folks of you that are with the Salvage Dog team knew about the pandemic. So here we go. Number 20. Amazon is going to be a big player with, and they're going to be setting up a paywall. So Amazon is going to be the next big player in podcasting, and they're going to set up a paywall. Folks, we've already seen this kind of happen a little bit. There was a little thing a few weeks ago here where they accidentally, and I'm using my finger quotes here, and Kyle can verify I'm using finger quotes. They accidentally got it messed up with Audible or something like that, and they were charging like $8 for a podcast. It's going to happen, folks. They're going to put up a paywall. They need to make some money, and that's how it's going to happen, folks. What are you thinking about that, Mr. Kyle?
Yeah, I definitely think that Amazon enters the content war, and they're going to challenge Spotify and Apple for not only just podcasts, but music and audiobooks too. And I think that Amazon might even take this a step further. Is okay, Apple Podcasts has an app. It's called iTunes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how that works in the iPhone. I'm an Android guy. That's why I'm not allowed in the clubhouse. I've been clubhoused. That's an official word. Google has an app. Spotify has an app. Who doesn't have an app? Oh, Amazon? Well, if you think about Amazon Music is an app, and Amazon's Audible audiobooks is also an app. Why not podcast? It just makes sense. It just sounds like it's going to be something that's going to happen. Amazon is big when it comes to Amazon Web Services with their cloud offerings and all the kind of features they build. They kind of build it into their ecosystem, just like all the other big tech companies. Definitely going to see Amazon have an app that's going to be a podcast player in this space. What comes with that? Well, you have to, if you want your lady in the tube to give you the songs that you can't download or buy, you can be offered like $3.99. You can get their unlimited Apple or Amazon Music plan. And you can play it on your tube, play it in your car, play it on your phone. You can download music as long as you're part of their plan. It's the same thing with Spotify if you're on their member, right? Same thing with Apple. You buy what for 99 cents or $1 something, you can download music. Well, Amazon getting into the space is going to charge for it. Guarantee it. Guarantee there's going to be an app that you're going to have to buy or a program you're going to buy to get unlimited numbers of podcasts, which will include not just the free stuff. Because remember, you get the free stuff on the other guys too. It's going to include their special stuff. And we saw this with Amazon Prime when the Amazon Video, they took the podcast Homecoming and turned it into a movie or a series, a 2-season series, which is not bad either. The first, I think season 1 starred Julia Roberts. So it's like big time production. Well, why would they not be doing that with podcasts too? I totally see that not only is Tim's paywall prediction true, I think that the content wars is where Amazon is going. Why? Because attention is money. And just like I heard, I think I want to say Dave Jackson. Have we not said Dave Jackson yet? It's like what? It's just a few minutes into the program, we have to mention the Dave Jackson. Yeah, that's $100, Dave. Where and I don't know if he said this or not, but I'm going to credit him with this quote. And it's, if the product is free, you are the product. So if you're paying for it, well, you're paying for new content. And that's what people want. They want their eyes, they want their ears, and they're going to have to pay for it to get it. Otherwise, you're going to have to eat ads, or you're going to have to groan through free demo garbage. For us poor folk who don't want to pay the fee, that's the price you're going to have to. If you don't want to eat that stuff, you're going to have to go to a higher level and get the unlimited plan. I see that. And I see it also being as part of Prime. Prime's gonna cost a little bit more next year for this year, 2021. I see Prime going up, but it's gonna include all this other stuff. Because right now I'm paying what? $15.99 a month to get a credit on Audible. Well, I feel that Amazon's gonna, paywall this whole bundle. That's my prediction, Podstradamus. You what do you think of I think I took it to the next level.
I
I
think
took it
you did.
to the next level. I was here, and then I was here.
and that's why we also call you Yoda Pod Kyle. So you are the wee one. I am the great one. And just for full transparency, I mean, I'm a Amazon Prime member, but I
I am
don't,
too.
so I get I get the music, I get the videos, and the music and the videos are great for my girls when I'm putting them to bed or I want to watch a video. But I'm always prompted, oh, hey, but if you want more exclusive content or more content, you got to pay extra on top of your
Yeah.
Prime, which I'm not going to do because I've also got Netflix. I've got other stuff that I've got, but I can see them. And now we're going to do this number 20.5 prediction.
Oh, we're already going 0.5. Okay.
So not only are they going to put a paywall up there, but they're going to be one of the first ones, I think, that is going to, because I also publish my own poetry. So I'm on the Create Space thing. So I get a certain amount back when I sell a book. I'm thinking that they're going to show us how to monetize it. It's not going to be a lot. Folks, you're not going to get rich off of this. It's going to be better than Anchor and their stuff. But I think they're going to find a way to do the Amazon exclusive podcasts where they have professionals pop it out, and then they're going to have Amazon podcasts where we as content creators can go and upload our stuff, but it's only going to be available there to Amazon subscribers. It's not going to be available anywhere else. So maybe like a quasi Patreon kind of thing where we can make a little bit of money off of it.
Okay. I like that idea. I think that's very plausible because you think about it, with a $1 trillion evaluation is what Amazon is right now. That they could throw little crumbs
Mhm.
to us content people. Why not?
Sure.
I think that's a pretty, because the same way they do with audiobooks and the same way they do with books, they just make sense. Just sounds
Mhm.
like that fits their culture.
Mhm.
Definitely. Well, that brings us to number 19. And number 19 goes a little something like this. Apple will start hosting podcast content and threaten indie podcast hosting companies. Now, this is something that I heard Evo Terra talk about on his podcast Pontifications. That's a mouthful. But if you're interested in Evo Terra's, uh, I'll put the link to him in the show notes. He talked about, what if Apple Podcasts start hosting their own content? That would destroy the indie podcasting hosting company market. Maybe, but I'm thinking that Apple may do this. This just kind of, to me, this kind of makes sense that if they do this, that they're trying to bring more content into their ecosystem, the same way that Amazon in their first prediction is doing that. I think Apple's going to have to start anteing up, their poker chips in order to get into this. And this ultimately, if this does happen, will cause indie podcast companies to start buying their competitors. And this will start forming bigger hosting monsters. And we're going to see this rise of new podcast hosting companies. They're going to appear because anytime these companies, and think about Libsyn's a huge company, publicly traded. There's a couple other big ones, Blueberry, Podbean, BuzzFeed. These are big well, in the indie podcasting world, they're big. 80,000, 100,000 podcasts. That's a lot to think about, plus all the stuff they're doing privately on the side. That's big stuff. It's not hundred thousands, but there's only 1 million podcasts out there. So if you have 80,000 podcasts, you've got a nice chunk of the pie, right? These are active podcasts too, on top of that. Well, what happens when these companies then start buying up little companies and become even bigger companies? Well, they're going to start going after bigger fish. And every time you see this in any kind of market, when a company grows and goes for bigger fish, they don't care about little fish anymore. They don't care
Mhm.
about the podcast that only gets 100 downloads. And this is going to then kick off new podcast hosting companies that will support podcasts that either can't get into the bigger platforms because then there's a threshold that starts to be created because you're not a big fish, and you're going to see little companies appear. So this is I call this the trifecta. Apple starts hosting, bigger podcast companies freak out. They start buying their competitors in order to take enough chunk of the market because Apple's not going to appeal to everybody. We experience this with the provider page. If you're a podcast network and you want a provider page, well, Apple will give you one. They won't let you brand it. They will not let you put colors on it. And if you don't hit a certain number of downloads, they don't even talk to you. But if
Mhm.
you're Wondery, wow, they'll make it beautiful and themed buttons and all that stuff. Why? Because Wondery is big money, and Apple's going to cater to that. Well, if they start hosting, they're going to do the same thing. If they're not doing it now, and I suspect now, I don't have proof, but what do they say in the Navy? A rumor is just a premature fact. I suspect Apple's already hosting some people's content already.
Mhm.
That's just me. So what is this a big push? No, it's just you're going to open the market up. It's just another revenue stream for Apple. Why? Because Amazon's going to start eating their lunch. That's why. Google is already starting to eat a little bit of their lunch. Apple's going to have to awaken the sleeping giant, as they say. What do you think, Tim?
Well, you say Apple awaken the sleeping giant. I don't see them as, yes, right now they are the 800-pound gorilla, but Spotify is catching up. Google Podcast is catching up. Amazon, once they go toe to toe with it, I think Apple is going to be, if they don't move quickly on it, they're going to be left out in the cold because then people are going to, podcasters won't need iTunes. They won't need, Apple Podcasts to host their stuff. People will be directed to go over to Amazon, to go over to Google, and to go over to number 18, which is my prediction of Disney.
These all kind of flow together, don't they?
They do kind of flow together. Disney is going to set up a paywall for all their content. Now think about it. Disney Plus came out in the middle of not in the middle, but at the beginning of the pandemic, right before it, and then as it was hitting. And Mandalorian has been a runaway hit for them. They have so much content that they could do with podcasting, and kids are now used to podcasts because they're now used to sitting in front of a screen all day and listening to their teachers. And there's educational podcasts that are out there, but entertainment aimed at kids is what Disney and Pixar does best. And they've already proven their thing with their streaming service, because that's the big thing now with video is the streaming services. Amazon again has it. Apple has their own Apple TV stuff. This is going to be the next big thing. Is Disney is going to jump into the podcasting thing because they've already got the kids watching on Disney Plus. Why not add on podcasts to it? You've already got the talent locked into the Disney studios and the Pixar studios. All you got to do is drop the visual and put in the audio for it, the podcast for it. And, parents will eat it up because they'll be like, well, Disney, it's going to be nice and wholesome and healthy and good for the kids. It's not Sesame Street. It's not Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. It's not PBS-ish, but, and that's a word, PBS-ish. But Disney is going to fill that hole that is not being, filled at the big corporate level. There's a lot of podcasts out there that are doing stuff aimed at kids, educational wise, but as far as entertainment wise, they've got thousands upon thousands of characters that could do a podcast. And they got the voice actors all ready to do it. They don't need Tim and Kyle to do the voice acting for it. They ain't got to find people. They've already got it in their backyard. And they've already got those people signed up with contracts. They have a known quality there. It's a known thing. So Disney is going to jump in and do Disney Plus podcasts. I'm only going to charge Disney 20% of the revenue because you guys heard it here first. I'm going to go get the website here tomorrow, disneypluspodcast.com. Watch me do it. Watch me do it, Kyle. I'm going to do it.
Like a programmer joke. It's a Disney plus plus. It's like Disney Plus, but one more plus. This is a prediction I think that you have given. This is your third year in a row of giving Disney their props. And at first, it didn't seem like Disney was really going to do it because they had content kind of all over the place. And then all of a sudden, Disney Plus came out. I mean, talk about timing. Disney Plus drops and gets there, and they figure their stuff out right when the pandemic takes place. They have they've captive audience. I think they've released Mulan, live action Mulan via their streaming service. Plus, they also did The Mandalorian, 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, which was a huge breakaway. You're right. That saved their Star Wars franchise. So they have the chops, they have the talent, and they have a portfolio of amazing songs. Do you want to build a snowman? I mean, come on. So you have all the pieces are there, and I think it's an opportunity because I know some people hate the word kid cast, but children specific programming and podcasting, there's some of it out there, but come on, it's Disney. I mean, that brand name is it's like a 500-pound hammer. You cannot avoid. I mean, think about all the things that Disney could do. It writes itself, and when you include it in the Disney Plus package, if you would, almost like now I get the Disney Plus in the car, I get Disney Plus on my phone, I get Disney Plus at home. Why not? So what's it going to be in the car? It could be audio. Why not audio? Cars are made for audio. It's perfect for that. Or kids with their devices listening to a Disney story or a Disney, almost like a cartoon created for that property. It's perfect. Which then leads us into number 17, which is localization and local podcast hubs will finally become a real thing. This is something that Tim and I have been talking about for, I guess we're on 2 years now. I think even Matt Passy is very big in the locality space. When we talk about, it's $100, Matt, the idea of podcasts being local. And what do I mean by that? I mean that the localization part of it seems to be the problem. I come to a new town. I want to know about the new town. I should be able to punch in the new town and get all the podcasts that talk about the new town. That should be something that exists. Does it? No. I would say not in that simplistic sort of way. What happens is you get word of mouth, friends, people who live in the area tell you, "Oh yeah, listen to this podcast. You want to know?" There's one I think about New Orleans, which is Bourbon Street. There's a Bourbon Street one. There's some locality ones for different places. I've heard some history ones that kind of give you a walking tour of maybe some places that history took place. I remember the first time I ever went to San Francisco, which was in I was there as a kid, but when you're a kid with your parents, you don't really get to see San Francisco. I went there as a U.S. Navy tour. Our ship went underneath the Golden Gate Bridge, and which is kind of so-called Fleet Week. Big deal. All the Navy ships come in, and you get to explore San Francisco. We go to Alcatraz, the big touristy thing. They hand you a CD player, cassette tape. I think it was a cassette tape at the time, and a pair of headphones, and you walk around the prison, and they're like, move to Marker 7, and here's where Al Capone had a cigarette. You're like, oh, that's cool. And then you move on to the next one. Podcasting is perfect for that. Can you imagine going on a battlefield and listen to that? I've yet to hear a good one. I know there are some out there. I've yet to hear a good one. Well, localization then becomes like, what's the best restaurants to eat at? What's the best places to go see? What's the real estate like there? I know it. I think Tampa and Orlando have some of these locality and locational podcasts about the best of and real estate market that are just blow your mind. But you come to Fredericksburg or someplace else and then you don't have it. Well, I think this is the year that local starts to get in action. And then there is going to be platforms or apps or even podcasters that help localization become a real thing.
I think it's a perfect thing, especially when everything starts opening back up and people start traveling and moving around. And I foresee that happening this year. You know, that people are going to want to, as soon as people get vaccinated, whatever it is, the stuff goes to we get to a normal stasis kind of thing here.
Manageable place.
I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV. I play one on Disney Plus Podcast.com. I'm going to get the website. But people are going to want to go places because we haven't been able to go anywhere since March of 2020. So people are going to want to go places and do family outings and trips and all that kind of good stuff. And what kind of, it's okay, folks, I'm going to make you a lot of money here. All right. This is us giving back to you. What you need to do is you need to go to your local tourist board. And if you're thinking about starting a podcast, here's where you start off, because you can go talk to all the local businesses, all the parks, the expo centers. If you got a sports team there, boom. You don't have to create the content. The content is there. All you need to do is curate the content.
Yeah.
And these tourism boards, these city governments, they will pay through the nose for it if you can produce good content and then get it out there to tourists, getting with some travel agencies and have that podcast out there and available for them. Folks, it's going to make you money hand over fist. And you know me, I'm not a monetization kind of guy, but I'm looking around here. Papa's got a new microphone, but Papa could use a new sound booth. I'm just saying.
I think that's true because people live. You live in a place. You know where all the good places are. You know the good pizza place. You know the good store to go to get the hardware. You know the good place to go to get the certain type of tacos. You know the good places. You know the places that make the best sandwiches. Here around here, this is the Battlefield store. Battlefield store makes the best sandwiches. In fact, they're opening a coffee shop in their Battlefield store. I was like, oh, come on. I mean, take my money, please. So this is the kind of place that we already know, like in our hometown, where the good places are. So do you. You know where the good places are. So the localization and the podcast, the local podcast, this is a market that has yet to be tapped with any kind of significance. I think this is the year. This is the year that we get local because think about it. A lot of places closed. A lot of the things that you thought were out there, they're gone. A lot of businesses closed up, and it's tragic. So what's left? What replaced it? What's the one thing that's going to become better than maybe the place that left? Or maybe they went off and started a new company. You're going to need to know that. These kind of local podcasts are going to help you do that. And there's it just needs a better way of managing how you find these podcasts. Because right now, I think finding a local podcast is hard.
It really is.
It's not user friendly. And I think this will be the year that changes.
Well, and as a side note to all of this, Kyle, about the localization, and this affects you and me where we live, think about the people that are no longer commuting, that they're doing work from home. So for me, I was doing a 3-hour commute every day. And at the end of that commute, I put, I feed my girls and I put them to bed and I'm exhausted. I don't go anywhere. Now I do poetry readings every Friday night. Kyle laughs at me and that's fine. But I do poetry readings now. I go, I have time to go to, the downtown Fredericksburg area and explore things. I can go to First Fridays and go to the art galleries and talk with the artists there. So now I have more time that I can spend in my local community. Whereas in March, 3 hours, 3-hour commute. And I didn't have the time to do that. Now I have the time to do that. Kyle, what do you got time to do?
Well, just one more point to add to this topic. If you've been watching, I don't recommend you actually watch news at all. Just turn it off. But there have been some stories out there about mass migrations. People that experienced the pandemic in big cities were like, this is the last time I'm going to be in a big city, or in places that had to have heavy lockdowns. people are migrating out of those places. New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Chicago, a lot of those places, people are leaving and they're
Mhm.
looking for other places to go. So if you have a community that sounds like a place that these people would want to come to, well, you are missing an opportunity to tell them about your place, how great it is, what's good about it, what's the business atmosphere like, what's the people like, what are the attractions, what are the natural resources places like, what are the vistas and the trails and the parks. This is the time to tell people like that, because if you run a business, a local business, and you're wanting to get traffic to come in, why not have a podcast to advertise? It becomes almost a perfect advertisement, because you could be the podcast that is the tastemaker for that town.
Mhm.
And then think about all the other businesses as you generate buzz for the best pizza in my town. Well, maybe you get a free pizza out of that. Maybe you get something more. You can make a business out of this. I think this is the year. This is what I think, Tim. I think this is the year.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And now that brings us to number 16. Oh, sweet 16. I remember when I was 16. I remember when you were 16, Kyle. I didn't know you back then, but I remember when you were 16. And number 16 is virtual
Unfortunately.
conferences will increase in attendance, outpacing in-person events historically. And the one that's near and dear to our heart is Podfest Global. They're going to beat last year's record. Now, last year they got the Guinness Book of World Records. They had 5,003 people attend. And when that was done, I was like, all right, 2021, 5,004. Let's go. Let's beat the record. Um,
Price is
we,
right, right? He's got $1 more.
that's all you need to do to beat it. But I'm going to attend the one in 2021. It's happening March 1st to the 5th. You can go to Podfest Global to get your tickets for that. I highly recommend it. It's 2 weeks of wonderful programming, and we'll be there and talking about the programming and our lessons learned. But virtual conferences took off. Now, last year, they did the Podfest, which I missed out on in Orlando. They were the last ones, the last event, in-person event,
Way back in the day,
way
I
back
was
in the day when we
at
did that.
that March of 2020. That was an old time when we didn't have to wear masks and stuff. Yeah, way back when.
And Kyle's wearing a mask right now, not because he's not trying to get sick, but because I told him he needs to wear a mask. I can't look at him. He makes
Oh,
me giggle too much.
that was the last time I saw like people. That was
Yeah.
like it was like the world ended. The minute that
Mhm.
conference was over, the world ended. So your prediction,
Exactly.
this plays off your prediction from last year where you talked about how they kind of maxed out in the number of conferences they were having.
Mhm.
It turns out, okay, yeah, maxed out in real conferences, but virtual, man, there's a lot of appetite for virtual.
Exactly. Well, and the reason there's the appetite for virtual is because you and I were talking about this offline a couple of weeks ago before we got the announcement for Podfest Global. But Podfest was going to come back in June. And I was like, Kyle, why would I go now? If it happens, it happens. And I hope it does. But it's the cost to get down there. It's the hotel rooms. It is a
Yep.
magical experience. I'm not going to deny that. But I tell you what, um, this year when we did Podfest Global, I didn't have to take off of work. My work laptop is right next to me here. I just signed off for like a half hour, 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there. Signed back on and it did extra time at the end of the day. But I could do that conference from right here at home, and you know, eh, we had 5,000 people attend that conference. Well, actually over 5,000. But then Super Joe Pardo did it with Icon in indie podcasting conference. He did a slew of those, and he
Right,
had
did.
a ton of people attend. And then Podfest Expo, they had to go virtual. They got a ton of people to attend. Third Coast out of Chicago had to go totally virtual, and they're already talking about doing virtual in 2021. So all these conferences are like, we got to go online, and it's the best way to get people in because you don't have to go anywhere. You can just do it from the comfort of your own home. You can be in your PJs all day if you want to. Now people are craving the in-person stuff, don't get me wrong, but for me, I'm I'm not going back to my office. I'm staying right here at home and working from home. I love it. I love not having the commute, which we were talking about earlier in our localization prediction. I don't want the commute. I don't want to go driving places. If and when things do open back up, I will go to like one, maybe two in-person conferences. And the in-person one that I would go to would be Podfest down in Orlando. And then the second one would better be really close to home, like a DC Podfest or, Indie PodCon up in New Jersey. I'm not going to go over to Nashville. I'm not going to go to Chicago. I'm not going to go to LA. If I do one, it's going to be one big one, and that's it. And I'm not going to go. And a lot of people are of that mindset.
Yeah.
It's not cost effective. And for the folks that are running these events, it's more cost effective to do it that way versus than to, bet on you're going to get enough people in the hotel rooms. And how much do you charge for your programming, and how, who are you going to get big name people to come and speak at your event? It's a lot easier on everybody to do it at home. Yes, one day we'll get back to in person, but virtual is going to be the way to go.
Well, then we're really it's we're there's a lot of gratitude in the sense that both of us are blessed to have full-time jobs that we can work at home from. That we have employers that we're able to keep going, and we are able to work at home and not have to go in the office. I had to go in the office the other day, first time in 9 months. It was weird. It was surreal. Places like it's spick and span, but man, it's just it's unnatural. Parking lot's empty. The office was empty. It was really weird. The so that's one thing. A lot of people did not. A lot of people had to change jobs or lost their jobs or had huge financial problems happen. And it just seems like it's not over. It's not over
Mhm.
yet. The economic ramifications of what's that's about to happen over the past year, I don't think has hit us yet. I think that's still coming through. There's a whole nother tidal wave of of fun times ahead. What's the Chinese proverb? Maybe you live in interesting times. Well, yeah, well, check that box. So an in-person conference, I'm on the fence. I've thought about going to Orlando, but you're right. It's $1,000 for a hotel room for a week, 3 days, 4 days, whatever. You have to drive or fly down. That's gas and wear and tear or whatever, plane tickets. And then there's the cost of the actual conference. And and then you run the risk if you haven't got the vaccine by then, or maybe you do, but maybe the vaccine doesn't last forever. They don't know, maybe it grows a third eye. They don't know that either. So you have all these kind of weird unknowns. It's almost like there's just too many questions out there right now to know this far in advance. So the prediction is the virtual becomes the better option. First off, it's cheaper for the event promoter. I mean, doing virtual has a lot of overhead differences. I wouldn't say
Mhm.
cheaper in the sense of overhead. You don't have to do the hotel or anything. But, the IT costs then start to add up. Your operations costs for IT become the actual expense versus the operations cost for having rooms.
Mhm.
It doesn't make it cheaper. Just shifts the cost over. So there's still costs there, but they don't have to feed anybody. That's cool. They don't have to, they're not managing the space. There's not, there's the added extra thing of things like security. You ever seen two
Mhm.
podcasters punch each other? That's a fun time. So you don't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. You don't have to worry about your microphones not working with in one of the rooms or the camera dying or something like that. It becomes the onus of the speaker. If their stuff dies, they've sent a video with Chris Kermissos with Podfest. You have to record a video of your talk before you actually talk. So if you have technical problems, all he does is he turns the video on. Ta-da! There you go. He's already solved his technical problem. He's already ahead of the game with that. So that's why I think virtual is really, really going to be the way to go. But man, do I love hanging out with people. But here's my fear with the hanging out with people. Besides all the other fear, take all that other crazy stuff I can't control aside. Who's gonna be there?
Mhm.
I mean, I'm gonna meet some new people, sure, but the people it's like all my old friends and the people the new friends and the connections I've made before. I make new ones, but man, I just feel like that audience is gonna be really anemic. It's gonna really be a lot of people just not gonna show up.
Mhm.
And will that make it different? I don't know. So I'm tentative, but this prediction, I think I attended what? Geez, 10, 12, maybe 14 virtual conferences this past year, all from the comfort of my home. I
Mhm.
spoke at half of them. So I had to learn all that too. So I've seen it from both sides of the fence as being an attendee and being the speaker. So the virtual, I think, for giving a presentation, the virtual's way easier. I mean, I can have my notes right here, post-it notes. I have all my scripts. I can cheat all over the place. When you speak in person, you have to practice, and you have to practice not only standing in front of a room, you have to read a room. When you're
Mhm.
talking virtually, are people laughing? People not laughing? Who cares, right?
Mhm.
Some people aren't even watching. They'll watch it 2, 3 weeks from now. So virtual has its advantages, both for the promoter and for the speaker and for the attendee. But it's still in person is better. But
Mhm.
I don't think 2021 is going to be a good year for in-person events simply because I don't think anyone's going to be there, and that will make it not the same environment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no,
Does that
it
make-
absolutely makes it, because yeah, we all want to get back to being in person. We really do. 2021 is not going to be the year to do it, and unfortunately, the events circuit is going to take a hit from those in person events,
yeah,
M- and that's gonna reverberate past 2021. It's going to roll into 2022 and 2023 because then people are going to be more comfortable being at home. So if you have if you have an in-person event, you're going to have a virtual aspect to it because you're only going to you might get half of the audience that you would have got before 2020. Maybe half of those people show up into an in-person event. So you're going to have the virtual alongside of the in-person event.
yeah,
And that's going to take a couple of years, not a couple of, events, a couple of years to get back, and I don't think we're ever going to get back. This is going to be it's a bad cliche. It's the cliche of 2020. This is going to be our new normal of you're going to have if you're going to have the in person, you're going to have saddled with that a virtual aspect for people that are not going to hit it, and actually makes sense because you're going to get more people internationally that way to do it because not everybody from Bangor, Bangladesh, is going to fly over here to Orlando to go to Podfest. This is the only way that they can attend that Podfest, and we need their
true.
voices.
Well, I'd say that the people have gotten a taste of how the virtual experience works, and
Mhm.
it's almost like the real thing, and people like it. I
Mhm.
think that taste is not going away, and I hate new normal. I love ambiguity and dealing with this is the year of change. We're going to learn new things. This is the year of change, and that brings us to number 15, the year of change. My youngest child was on his phone, and I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Watching my favorite podcast." And this is the prediction for number 15 is video podcasts will become synonymous with audio podcasts. And meanwhile, audio podcasters will have to adapt to the influx of new video podcasters, but become pretentious old guard elitists. Oh, I remember the day back when we did only audio podcasts. That's the real way to podcast. I think 2021 is the year that goes away. The blending will have occurred. Video people who do podcasting will be the same as audio people who do podcasting. And I'll tell you, after all these virtual conferences, playing off that a little bit, the number of people now doing video podcasts in conjunction with their audio podcasts is easily quadruple, 10x. You pick a number. It's
Mhm.
a lot of people. In fact, one of those people who's been doing video podcasts on top of their audio podcast is this guy right next to me with his Create Art podcast, started doing video stuff. So I think that the video and audio stuff, that's just delivery. I think a podcaster is going to change. The definition is going to start to change to mean something different. And it's going to become like, if you remember when Google first came out. Hey, did you search? Go search that. Go search that. We don't say go search that anymore. We say, did you Google that? Because now Google's become synonymous with search. I think podcasting has become synonymous with digital shows, digital content.
Mm-hmm.
In the same way that a movie on Netflix and a movie in the theater are still a movie. I didn't stream it. In fact, Cobra Kai just came out season 3 the other day, and it's, if you haven't seen Cobra Kai, the basically is where it picks up where Karate Kid 3 left off, in a sense. And now they're all old. It's fantastic. It's well written. It doesn't take itself seriously, which is fantastic. It's basically a 10-hour movie. It is 10 1-hour episodes, or 45 minutes, probably made for commercials, made for TV. It's the same. So the production union, whatever. But it's essentially 10-hour movie. It's still a movie, still content. Well, the same thing with video and audio podcasting. Just because you record it on video, it's still a podcast. Just because you're in audio and not video, still a podcast. If you do both, still a podcast. I think it's all going to become blurred, and no one's going to care. Because my kid watching his favorite Critical Role is both a podcast that you can listen to and a podcast you can watch. Guess what?
Mm-hmm.
They're both podcasts.
Yep.
And Tim, since you've jumped into this realm, walk me through your thinking of how I think this prediction is correct.
Kyle, we attended DC Podfest together. The last time it was an in-person thing, and we attended the Icon Indie Podcaster conference. And I remember the last DC Podfest, they were talking about adding video. And when I heard that, I was like, all right, I'm going to have to jump into that water. Mainly because Create Art Podcast is about art, and it's a lot of stuff is visual. And plus, you have a fantastic time watching me wave my hands in the air when you're talking and going, "Oh my God, I can't believe Kyle said that," or when I'm doing my air quotes. And people want to see that kind of stuff. People want to see the banter between you and I. And eventually, maybe we turn PodRec into something like that, where our folks with the salvage team or the salvage dog team, they can actually see us go ahead and do this kind of stuff. But it's extra content that you can do that is easy to integrate into your podcast already. So basically what I'm doing is I'm doing a StreamYard thing, and then I am connecting it with my Facebook. I'm also doing it on Instagram by my phone at the same time. And I'm pulling it off of Facebook, editing it, doing video editing, which is simpler than I initially thought, and free. I found a free video editor on that, and then putting it on my website, and then putting it also on YouTube. YouTube is the second largest search engine out there. Why would you not? Why would you not have your podcast out there? And I'm also in the video, I'm referring to the podcast.
Do you feel they're both podcasts?
Yeah, they're both podcasts. They're both podcasts. I was in the old guard. Back about 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And then I saw the light at DC Podfest when everyone was talking about, hey, video's the next thing. I was like, okay.
I was a little late.
Yeah,
a little late.
But the thing of it is you got to think about.
Well, when VidFest, Twitch became the thing where I started video, and then I realized that Twitch is the same thing. It's the same thing. It's a different platform.
Yeah. We're doing the same thing. We're still talking. You and I are still talking to each other. When I do, Create Our Podcast, I'm still talking to my audience.
Yep.
It's just a different format. And my reasonings for not doing it sooner was the cost, and how am I going to integrate that into my podcast? I'm going to do video editing and audio editing. Guess what? I know how to do audio editing. I pretty much know how to do video editing. And I'm not trying to do any big, flashy Hollywood kind of stuff. You get what you get, and you don't throw a fit, like I tell my girls. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, there is.
The old guard needs to get over themselves. I got over myself, and I was part of the old guard too. I was like, no, it's not really a podcast. Yeah, guess what? It's a podcast or a vidcast or whatever you want to call it. That's what it is. And I call it my podcast. It's a vital part of my podcast. And yeah, we got to get Kyle on board. So if you want to get Kyle on board, you need to send an email at podrect@gmail.com and let Kyle know. We need to do a video aspect of this for our Patreon for our
We do. We do.
salvage team and our salvage dog team.
We do. But that leads us to number 14, Tim, which this is where I'm back in the old guard because I
Mhm.
think you have a little more forward thinking aspect on number 14. So uh, I know where I
Yeah.
stand. Why don't you introduce
Well,
this one? Because I've got different feelings than you do on this one.
yes, you do. Yes, you do. So, Clubhouse, if you haven't heard, all the hip hip happening kids are on the Clubhouse. It is going to be the next big thing, kind of like Anchor was when it opened up, and especially when it opens up to Android, because I'm an Android guy. I don't have Apple, but when it fully opens up to Android, it's going to fizzle. I think very quickly, unless it's bought out by a big player. The guys that run Clubhouse, they're lacking one big thing, and that's good moderation for stuff that happens in the Clubhouse. Because right now it's wild, wild west, and you can do and say anything that you want in there. There's no, which some people are like, oh yeah, that sounds great, but really, if your kid gets a hold of that, is it that great? Or if you're trying to get some good information or good news and you run into a bunch of shysters up on there and, people are, pinging you for money every 10 seconds, is it that good? No, but I think if you get a big player to buy out Clubhouse, I think that could be the next big thing. Right now, for me, it's like Anchor. Anchor's being held on by Spotify. They bought them out, and they got a bloody threat on them. But if Clubhouse doesn't get somebody to buy them out, I think it will fizzle out pretty fast. But Kyle, are you in the Clubhouse?
No, because I'm an Android user, so I've been clubhoused, which is when everybody joins Clubhouse but you. And I think this is the problem with Clubhouse. The exclusivity is trying to copy the Facebook formula, which
Mm-hmm.
is be exclusive and you can't get in unless you're in the club, right? Because there are all these famous people on there and notable talkers. But I think it's a gimmick. And now
Mm-hmm.
I said the same thing about TikTok, but then I still think TikTok's kind of a gimmick, even though it's fun to watch. I think Instagram Reels is pretty much killing TikTok anyway. But Clubhouse, I think, will die quick, unceremonial death this summer when everyone stops caring. I think once the exclusivity wears off, because it's Apple only right now, that'll be it. When they let the Android people in, us dregs of the earth, us dirty Android people, when you get to come in there and like, what's up? Hey, have a beer. Yeah, that's it, man. That's Clubhouse will be ruined. Oh, you knaves have ruined us. That'll be it. The exclusivity will be over. The country club feel of Clubhouse will have expired, and no one will care anymore. And I think the biggest reason why no one will care, can't record it. What's
Mm-hmm.
the point? I guess you can't record it natively. Now, of course, I could plug Clubhouse into my audio equipment here, and yeah, I could rip the audio off there. That's not hard. That's a simple thing to do. The
Mm-hmm.
problem is apparently that violates the terms of service, and that's all bad. And if you do that, then they'll come after you with an army of lawyers. And this, I've heard all these things. I don't know if it's true or not because I'm not in the clubhouse. I'm standing out in the yard. I feel like this is what's that movie with Bill Murray? All right. Nobody Caddyshack. That's it. Right. I'm a caddy. I'm not in the clubhouse. I don't get to have the mint juleps and the cheeses. I'm standing out in the yard with the gopher or I'm cleaning the pool.
Mm-hmm.
I think summertime, no one's going to care. Something else will have replaced it and it'll be dead. And I think you're right. No one buys it, but come on. In this day and age, but innovation through acquisition is the name of the game. These big tech
Mm-hmm.
companies gobble up what either to get rid of it, they buy it and put it on a shelf, or to incorporate it into their platform. Well, Spotify bought Anchor. Okay, who else out there might want to buy Clubhouse and then utilize it as a possible Anchor-like, recording device? I don't know. Because I also see another app out there called Discord. Discord is used in the Twitch space very, very well, and you can do all sorts of things with Discord. Clubhouse is kind of a elitist Discord. Well, we already have Discord. Is Clubhouse really that
Mhm.
important then? If you have competitors? I don't know. So I'm in. I think it'll be dead. I'm going to give it a date. It will die on Independence Day, July 4th, 2021. Clubhouse will release its memo to its users saying we're sorry, but we discontinued it because I believe it's free. Is it not?
Yeah, I believe it is free. And you know what? If you want to send an invite to Kyle, you can send an invite to Kyle at podrect@gmail.com. And you
I
know
can't
what?
open
He can't open it because he's got an
it.
Android phone.
Oh, it's
phone.
so yeah, it's just it's like
So
high
send
school.
Kyle all the invites you want to send him. Yeah, send him. Just get everybody on Clubhouse to send Kyle an invite.
Both
And
Mary Roberts and Jody Kringle are both on there too. And Jody was in the
Mhm.
Android club for a while, but she pulled out her iPad and got it to work. And I was like, Jody, you joined the dark side. Oh, so
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
so talking about stuff like that about the Clubhouse and exclusivity, Kyle, I think lucky number 13 is right up your alley.
Okay, this one is going to get me punched in the face, or as Dave Jackson says, no one's going to punch you in the face. No, this one I think is going to torque people off. I think there is the possibility. Okay, speaking of exclusivity, the IAB certification for stats, everyone has to have it. Well, if everyone has it, then is it good for anything? Because I'm hearing rumors that one company's IAB stats don't exactly line up with another company's IAB stats, depending on how they measure it. And I thought, well, isn't that the whole point of an IAB certification? Now, I could be
Mhm.
wrong. I could have misheard that, but I've heard it enough times to make me go, there's something here. I smell smoke. So I think there's an arrival of a new standard or a new standards organization that will flip the IAB certification on its ear because it will not be good enough for some. And the result will create a new standard. And this will renew the statistics war or the download war in podcasting. I think that IAB certification was a good version one. I think version two is right around the corner. And I think that because it doesn't seem like it's apples to apples. Maybe it's like, Golden Delicious versus, crab. Maybe it's one of those, like,
Mhm.
they're kind of like apples, but does it really matter? I think they have put enough emphasis on IAB certifications that it does matter. It matters a lot because you want your one download to one download because everyone's concerned about statistics, especially
Mhm.
marketers. That I think there's a vulnerability there. Tim, what do you think I'm off base with this one, or what do you think?
No, I'm going to take it one step further, and I'm going to say that that IAB 2.0 is going to come from the big players in the podcasting world. It's going to come from Spotify. It's going to come from Google. It's going to come from Amazon and Apple and those guys because all the companies that are doing all the web hosting and all that, they're the ones that have a handle in it. But I think the big guys are going to say, you know what, we're going to set the standard. We're going to say this was what counts as a download. This is what counts as a listen, and this is what we can track it down to the state that the person is in or the city that the person is in. Now, privacy is going to play in there, and I think they'll track. They're not going to track it down to your IP address. I don't know. They sell that kind of stuff all the time, anyways. But I think that IAB 2.0 is going to be directed by the big guys. It's not going to be directed by your blueberries, your Libsyns, and Podbeans and Buzzsprouts, all that. It's coming from the big guys, and they need it so that way they can sell podcast advertising to the people that they're going to sell it to. So it'll be exclusive with Amazon. You'll have big Amazon companies that work within Amazon, manufacturers, and all that kind of jazz. will have their ads on Amazon stuff, and that's how Amazon is going to sell it to their advertisers. That's how Google is going to sell it to their advertisers, because Google is the expert at selling space on their search engine. So why would they not figure out a way to sell space on their podcast stats? So I think they're going to be the ones that dictate it, not the web host.
I think to take this a step further, and I'm going to get into conspiracy land here. The Podcast Academy recently changed its entire board of directors. Supposedly, was part of their bylaws that they're going to redo it every single time. Fine, if that's your bylaws, okay, I get it. Rob Greenlee, who's one of the VPs over at Libsyn, was on that board, and he's no longer. I think he was the chair too. He's gone now. I was like, okay, well, they change board of directors every single year. The Academy was supposed to be the new, almost the awards in a way, plus also set standards for quality, et cetera, right? By lifting up podcasts to a point where these are the best of the best, et cetera. It's the new board of directors that made me raise an eyebrow, because one of them, Sony Music, NPR, and Amazon Music are on this list. And I was like, well, that's interesting to see, Amazon Music, but Amazon doesn't have podcasts. It's like, why would they care about the podcast? Well, because they started down the podcast road. Sony Music too. I was like, why would Sony Music care about the podcasting industry? Well, again, it's content. So when you have big players, I mean, Sony Music is a monster when you start thinking about coming into this space. NPR is on this list as well. It's another monster. It's a couple different media, Tenderfoot TV, Spokes Media. You start to think about the way this is laying out, that if these big players are jumping into the podcast space or are expanding their portfolios to absorb podcasting into it, then is the IAB certification that's currently out right now good enough? I would argue it's not. I would say that they're not, even if it is, they're not going to accept it. I think you're right, that they're going to abide by their own standard, and we're going to go back into the statistics weirdness where an Amazon download does not equal a Google download, which does not equal an Apple download. Even if you knew what that algorithm was in the background anyway. I think there is an argument to be made that the certification is going to change again. I don't think there's any way around it, but again, that's just Kyle. I'm looking at the space. I'm seeing the future. Remember, this is predictions. We could be completely wrong about this. You could be screaming at your podcast player right now saying, Kyle, you are a moron. I cannot believe you said that. It's a ridiculous prediction. I'll just point back to 2019 and 2020. Tim and I are 75%-ish for both years. So is this the one I got wrong? Or ...
And speaking of three dots, number 12. Because when I think of three dots, I think of number 12. I don't know why. I just do. Each dot equals 4. There we go. Samsung Q9U microphone will finally come out in 2021. They promoted that thing at the beginning of 2020. It was going to be the next thing since sliced bread. It was going to be the microphone that I was going to get. That was going to be my next microphone, because it was $200. It was purported to sound not quite as good as an RE320, but it was going to be, one of the big boy microphones. Now, the Samsung 2QU, the one that I used to use, which is a direct competitor with the ATR 2100, sounds perfectly fine. I like my voice in that microphone, but this one was going to up it up a notch and get in that $200 range for the microphone. And there was a lot of people that were really excited about it because it had the USB in the back, or the USB-C connection in the back, and the XLR cable in the back. And if it sounded anything like the 2QU, the 9QU was going to be even better. They had better electronics in it and everything like that. And for $200 for a microphone that is that versatile, I think a lot of beginning podcasters were going to give it a good hard look into thinking this is, and a lot of streamers and a lot of video people were going to take a look at it and go, this is kind of what I want once they heard it. And I've been asking around and asking around. No one can give me a good solid answer. I think there was an issue with some of the electronics being made in China, and with the whole virus thing coming out, and they had some problems moving stuff over. But with all that stuff dying down now, it's going to come out. I'm not going to regret it. I might get it for Kyle for our third anniversary of Podrect, where we help you survive your podcast.
What is third anniversary? Wood? I think that's wood.
That's wood, yeah.
It's not silver.
Wood or a Samsung 9Q. Yeah. But I think when this microphone comes out, and I was reading a lot of reviews, and a lot of people had tried it out, seen a lot of YouTube videos. A lot of people were really psyched up about this microphone, and I think it needs to come out. I think we have enough room in the marketplace, because the other $200 microphone is the Zoom ZD1 or ZDM one out there, another really good microphone. But I think there is space in the marketplace for us to go ahead and have that $200 microphone for folks that, let's say you've been podcasting for a year on your ATR 2100 or your Samsung 2QU. People want to upgrade their mics, and going from a $50 microphone, $70 microphone to a $200 microphone is a comfortable thing to do. But to go to a $400 microphone like the Heil PR40, the music, please. That was my bad attempt at music. That is a huge jump. That is a huge investment. The $200 microphone has been proven that people will go to that $200 microphone, and there is space in the podcast world for it to happen. It's coming out this year, folks.
I don't have a horse in this fight because I'm not a huge technophile like you are when it comes to microphone. However, that being said, a little birdie told me that they're going to loan me their Heil PR40. It's coming in the mail. Should be here. Might be here tomorrow. So we'll see whether or not I like it. It's a borrow, not a give. So I'm going to use it to see whether or not my rich, smooth voice sounds better on a microphone that is 4 times more expensive than the one I'm using now. So the fact that this microphone is finally coming out, yeah, I think this is just another example of how the world was kind of knocked around a little bit, and production schedules and supplies of materials and on hand employees to actually put the thing together kind of hit Samsung in a way that they hadn't expected. And of course, that their whole slate of products probably got shifted to the right by 6 to 9 months, maybe even a year, depending on how bad that hit them. So the fact that it's coming out, I mean, you think about, they had it almost ready, then the world paused, and now they're ready again. What other microphone manufacturer actually got anything done during that time? They might be the only show in town, so it might be a bomber year for them. Samsung may become like the microphone for 2021. Never know. I think that's a good way to look at that. Well, that brings us to number 11. Number 11. And again, I'm hitting all the institutions of podcasting right now. I think 2021, I think 2020 was the year of people sitting around thinking of stuff. And then 2021 is going to be the year of changing it. I think a lot of people sat around and thought about the RSS feed. And I know this is another topic that the podcasters get wrapped around the axle. Do not touch my RSS feed, But again, I think it's adapt or die. I think the push to improve the RSS feed protocol will gain momentum in 2021 and force the old RSS feed to finally be phased out. I think there will be a new version of it. I think it will include new tags. It will be more acceptable to some of the dynamic ad insertion stuff. I don't think it'll be quite what they want, which is, complete control. That's not going to happen. Podcasters are still going to control their RSS feed, but it will allow for things like the ability to do localization. I think that'll be a cool feature. Geographical type data goes in there. I think it'll allow for podcasters to finally dictate where ads actually do go if they do dynamic ad insertion into their podcast. Instead, it's, and then after his long battle with cancer, he died. Hey, and now it's a word from our sponsor, Black Rifle Coffee. See, that's not how those work. And those are the worst transitions. And I think podcasters will finally have the ability to control that with a new RSS feed protocol. I mean, why not? The RSS feed protocol is an ancient dog. It's time for a puppy. It's time to bring in some new blood into this thing. And people have been, dude, take your hands off my RSS. No, I think that is over. And a lot of people sat around and thought about this. And I think 2021 is the year the RSS feed will adapt or die. And it's not going to die. I think it's going to adapt. I think the old one's going to die away. A new one's going to come out, and we're going to just accept it and move on. What do you think, Tim?
I have no opinion on this because, you know, does I've had my RSS feed hijacked. I had that happen one time with a company out of India, and it took a long time for me to get back to where it needed to be. I think there's more security measures that need to be instituted, so that way people can't easily hijack the RSS feed. Is it going to be RSS feed 2.0? Maybe, can you piggyback, some video and some extracurricular stuff on that, whatever happens down the pike? That would be nice because the RSS feed has been with us for a long, 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 long time. Maybe Mr. Curry can, helping us start podcasting back in 2004. Maybe he can help us with the 2.0 version of this. But yeah, it's about time for it to happen. Do we have the stomach for it to happen? Do we have the controversy for it to happen? I think if we see more RSS feeds get hijacked, yeah, then people are going to demand it. But if you don't have something that is breaking the system, then people don't want to improve it that much. So
I love the security idea. I didn't think about that. Actually, that's a novel concept to think about the encryption quality of an RSS feed to where you have to actually have almost like two-factor authentication to allow someone to use your RSS feed. There's an XML. I mean, you can get really technical into this. Some of the XML stuff that you can add to that. There's the ability to almost do blockchain with RSS feeds. I mean, there's a couple different things that could happen with an RSS feed to make it more secure. I think this is the year that happens. I think there is enough room in the industry right now for an RSS feed version change to allow for some new technological features take place that isn't shocking. Like, you have to learn like a whole new software language or learn a whole new way. I think it's going to be just like the same old, just with some added features, some new functionality, and maybe maybe it's a JSON file or something a little more user friendly. Because you can't. I mean, you look at an RSS feed? Dear God, it's like the stuff they found on the Roswell crash. When you look at it for the first time, it's terrifying for new podcasters. But if you could get a little more user friendly, like a JSON file where you can actually read what's going on, a little more, they call it human readable, then maybe there's some improvements there. I think there's something to be said for the advancements in cloud technology and some of the new languages that allow for better understanding of files that this can take advantage of. But something I think that is even more critical is number 10. And number 10 is the number of Spanish speaking podcasts, I think, will overtake English speaking podcasts in the total number of active shows. I think that the Spanish speaking world, when it comes to podcasting, is exploding. And Podfest and Podcast Global Summit proved that there is an appetite for Spanish language podcasts, for dual or bilingual podcasts. And heck, I mean, one of the biggest countries in South America, Portuguese out of Brazil, the Portuguese speaking podcasts are starting to be big. There is an international flavor of podcasting coming out. I think Spanish is going to be the biggest one, but not the only one. And I think it's going to overtake English as the primary language of the podcaster. What do you think about that one, Tim?
Oui. No, that's French. Si, yes. Si, senor. Yes. Uh, yeah, it excites me that when we're doing these predictions, that excites me because that really is bringing it international. It is bringing it to every corner. So as podcasters, we're kind of biased in thinking of this podcast is heard all over the world if you want it, if you know about it, and it makes us as podcasters think outside of just the United States because okay, well, we have the holidays, we celebrate Christmas and New Year's, but other countries don't do that. They celebrate New Year's at a different part of the year, or they celebrate Boxing Day, and that's not where I go and hit Kyle all the time. That's something else that happens in other countries, and that's going to help us not be so U.S. centric, but that's going to make us aware of what's happening in the outside of the borders of the United States, and it's very important that we do that because the internet really brought the world together. And some would argue that it's tearing us apart too, but it's really the great equalizer that we can talk on our microphones here and reach people in Mozambique if they have the technology, and the technology is cheap enough now, whereas most people around the world can have it. There's billions of these little cell phones made. There's a reason for it because they're cheap. You can buy them here in the United States for a certain amount of money, but you can get them overseas even cheaper. And people will
Yeah.
listen to their podcasts on their cell phones, or if they have a laptop, or if they have an iPad, or if they have something or a tablet, something like that. We can reach so many people out there. We can reach the whole world out there, and having Spanish outpacing English podcasts. Yeah, I see it happening because you look just south of the border there, Mexico City. How many people are in Mexico City? Oh my God, it's huge. It is huge down there. They knock out, it's a couple of LAs down there. So Spanish
Yeah.
speaking, I think it's about time that it overtakes us in 2021, and I'm excited for that. I think it's a good thing.
And the thing about that is, if you because I'm not a native Spanish speaker, I speak American English. Figuring out how many Spanish speaking podcasts there are, not an easy. I took a dive down that. It's not an easy thing to do. So I would even say to add to this prediction a 9.5, if you would, or what is this? No, 10.5. 10.5. I got to figure out where I'm
Mhm.
at. That I think that a new iTunes like application will emerge for Spanish speaking podcasting that will be able to give you the data that you need for Spanish speaking podcasting to show just how many of these shows. I know iTunes has language specific on there, but I think there's going to be something that's going to be a little more Central and South American centric that's going to emerge, or maybe even American. I mean, there might be an American, the Spanish speaking communities within the United States, has the same, is starting to get the same kind of pull that other communities have, other countries have. So there is going to be an application out there that will be for Spanish language podcasts that will be like an iTunes that will be able to finally give us the data for what that looks like. I think
Mhm.
I'm going to add to that. I think this is the year for Spanish language podcasting. Now, I would say, you could probably add to that. Why not Chinese? Well, because of the way their government is built, the Chinese one doesn't really play as well. You get kind of this weird mix mash of podcasts that are not as for lack of a better word, free, where you get in Spanish speaking countries. In Spanish speaking countries, there's a lot of new media and free flowing economy and middle class people starting to emerge from Spanish speaking countries in South and Central America, including the ones that are living here in the United States who have family that live in those areas. And not to mention, and this is the one I always love to bring up that everyone forgets, Spain speaks Spanish too. That's a country over in Europe. Yeah, who knew, right? So you have all this stuff going on, and this culmination of Spanish language podcasts, I think this is the year that it gives English podcasting a run for its money. I think you're
Mhm.
going to see this rise of that, in which probably will see a lot of bilingual stuff start to appear too. I
Absolutely.
maybe not technology wise right now, but definitely English podcasts being translated into Spanish and vice versa. I think that might be a thing too. But we'll call that 9.55. It's like a prediction with a prediction wrapped in a prediction, surrounded by a prediction, right?
A lot of predictions there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Tim, lead us into, because 9 and 8 are linked. 9 and 8 are linked because kind of like took the opposite ends of the spectrum on this one. So tell us about this.
Well, number 9 is a personal favorite of mine because I was right last year and I'm going to be right this year. Apple Podcasts. Now, Daniel J. Lewis, pay attention. Because I know you listen, Daniel. So listen here. Apple Podcasts will hit 2 million total podcasts by November of 2021. And I'll tell you the date. Mark it on your calendar. It's going to be right before Thanksgiving. It's going to be on the 21st. 21 November, we hit 2 million podcasts on Apple Podcasts. And why do I say that? Because there was a big surge of podcasts being done in, when the pandemic came out. We had literally hundreds of thousands of podcasts come out because of this. And a big chunk of them are now dead. They just are. They are pod wrecked because did they listen to Podrect? No, they did not. That's why you need to tell your friends who do a podcast, who want to do a podcast, who are starting up their podcast on Anchor. Tell them, you know what? I'm going to give you some good advice. You want to go listen to Tim and Kyle over at Podrect. And you can even email us, podrect@gmail.com, for advice for us to, help you out with, surviving that podcast. You're going to see 2 million by the 21st of November, 2021. Prove me wrong, Kyle.
Well, I think, yeah, I can back that. I can back 2 million podcasts, but I think I'm on the death side. Yes, I will be the fourth horseman here on the pale horse. I think tons of active podcasts will die, and the number of active podcasts, that's the key word, active, on Apple Podcasts will fall below 100,000. And the content wars will put more and more active podcasts behind the paywall. See Joe Rogan, because Joe Rogan's podcast disappeared from my Pocket Cast app when he finally finished his transition over to Spotify. Now, if I want Joe Rogan, I have to go over to Spotify. I can get some free stuff off Spotify, but I got to pay if I want to hear the new Joe Rogan stuff. My free stuff is no longer there. It's gone. It's gone everywhere. I think even the YouTube stuff's gone too, because the way behind the paywall. So as they start to snatch up all this good talent, these good podcasts that actually are making the numbers of audience members listening to them, these companies are going to pay for that content and put it behind their paywall. This is going to drop the active number. And on top of that, the 2020 blitz for podcasts, a lot of those people are going to go away. Why? Because podcasting is hard work. This is not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. It's very fundamental. I can teach you to podcast in an afternoon, but it's going to take you a lifetime to master this. And that is why you're going to see so many podcasts drop away. I even added a little bit to this one, Tim, for number 9. We write your 2 million podcast. And I said, forcing Apple to finally fix the horrible search engine, but that's just me. I think podcast, you need to fix your stupid search engine, Apple. You're almost $1 trillion company if you're not already? Come on. Still 2021, it's not fixed. Get over it. Fix your junk. Okay, that was my soapbox. But yeah, I think that 100,000, we're going to drop below 100,000 active. So what we're at active, we're predicting 120, 180,000. I think it's going to drop below 100,000. I think 2021 is going to be the cull. We're going to cull the herd, or they're going to harvest the wheat. That it's going to get rid of all those people who thought in 2020 podcasting was easy, and then they're going to screw this. It's going to be pod wrecks and pod fades and pod death all over the place. And there's going to be about 100,000 of us left, still kicking.
That excites me, Kyle. Because you know me, I love one of my favorite Shakespearean plays is Titus Andronicus. Ooh, and in that play, everybody dies. Everybody dies. And I love that kind of stuff.
How's it end?
It,
Everyone's dead.
everyone's dead. I think. And now, do I want to see, hundreds of thousands of podcasts go by the wayside? No, of course I don't. I'd love to have all that kind of content out there, but it's been proven. We've talked about it. By the time you hit between 7 and 13 episodes, that's, if you get past that 13th episode, you'll probably go for a full year. And then at that year end time frame, then you're like, I'm either going to stop podcasting or I'm going to keep on rolling and rolling and rolling. But we're already seeing those people that hit the 7 to 13 episodes. They're done. They are done now. And you're below 100,000. I'm going to say 200,000. I think we'll go below 200,000, but I don't think we're going to go below 100,000. I think that's going to be too low, because then I think if that happens, then advertisers will be like, I don't know. If below 100,000 increases the listenership and the engagement, okay, I got it. I can buy that. But I think it's going to be below 200,000, above 100,000.
Well, remember the caveat there is that I think that these big media companies are going to harvest the wheat. They're going to pull these people behind their paywall because they're good creators and their content is compelling and the audience wants to listen to them, thereby enticing them to buy their service or their platform or pay for their app. So the 100,000, those are us, freeloaders floating out in the ether, right? Who don't have any contracts, yet. Hey, call me, podrect@gmail.com. And Tim and I will talk to you about whatever you want us to make. So there is, I think the 100,000 is just the leftovers after the big companies pick, their new content creators for their 2021 launches. So I like that prediction, the 2 million and 100,000. I like that's a nice. We're definitely going to see some numbers play out, because the cool thing about this prediction is that both can be correct. You could have 2 million podcasts and only 100 of them are active. That can actually happen in podcasting, because we named our show after it. It's called Podrex. You smashed your podcast on the rocks and you walk away from it, but you still pay, or you got a free hosting company and it never goes away. That's a Podrex. So
and Daniel J. Lewis will let us know. He will let us know. Heck, we might even be able to get him on the show, and then he can laugh at us next year and tell us we're either right or wrong.
I like that idea. So moving on to number 7. This is something we keep bringing up. It's the one thing. It's like a penny in our shoe, but I think this might be the year. And I think after all the virtualization of events and the amount of kids that were home who had to learn from virtual teaching environments, number 7 is education-based podcasts will finally formalize to create a new and better podcast universities where you can actually get a certification or a degree just by listening to a podcast. I think this is the year that you get the University of Washington, or the George Mason, or the what's another one, Texas A&M certification from podcasting. And again, remember we said earlier, video and audio are now a podcast. They can be synonymous with each other. So I think this is the year where you see this type of education come out. Maybe in the free space. But what do you think, Tim?
I think we have to be careful about that certification. Who's giving that certification? If it's a, I'm going to get punched in the face for this, and I'm okay with that. If it's a online university, like say American Continental University, AIU, or Colorado Tech University, or even DeVry. Now, full disclosure, I used to work for DeVry. I used to work for AIU a long time ago. Southern New Hampshire University. I am not affiliated with them. They're a non-for-profit online university. Go check them out for yourself. I think if it comes, maybe Phoenix, University of Phoenix Online. There you go. If it comes from there, that certification doesn't carry as much weight as if it comes from a Texas A&M, if it comes from an MIT, And we're already seeing the MIT open courseware. We're already seeing Coursera out there doing their own certifications, which is all fine and dandy. I think we run the risk of there was a big run on online university stuff in the early 2000s, and a lot of people got burned by that. I know
True.
because I worked
Yep.
for one of the companies that burned people for that. A lot of horror stories. Maybe I can make a podcast out of it. Anyhow, yeah, Tim's previous jobs. That would be its own podcast.
It could be.
Um,
Wasn't ITT one of those? I think ITT went bankrupt, didn't they?
ITT, yeah, and nobody would take their certificate. No one would take their credits,
No.
and they even said, they had to legally say in their ads, credits are not transferable because nobody was going to take it because they were a bad university. So I would like, and the educator side of me, and the tech side of me says, yes, I agree with you, Kyle, but we need to make sure that the right educational institutions, a respected educational institution, is providing these certificates. Now, you have Akimbo with Seth Godin that has the alt MBA,
That's right.
and he is getting a lot of good traction from it. I'm actually, considering taking a couple of classes, not the alt MBA, but a couple of the workshops from Akimbo, because I really like his thought pattern on education in the 21st century. So, I can see this happening. I'm just cautious.
I agree. And we go in the Wayback Machine. When I got out of high school, I went to a place called High Tech Institute in Phoenix, Arizona, and it doesn't exist anymore. Now they do like aircraft. It's like Tijuana Polytech and motorcycle repair. It's not anything of any value anymore. So basically, the certificate I have from that place, although the knowledge I got because it was electromechanical engineering, I still have, still somewhere in my me computer here. But the certification is not worth anything to print on. But then again, I think in the world of disrupted education, I think there's an opening here. I think there's an opportunity for
Mhm,
formalized education that could be. You mean think about the having guest speakers and guest lecturers be podcast hosts or virtual hosts in that environment. I think there's something to be said about that, and I think
mhm,
this is the year that something could be created, even if it's small, even if it's something more related to a skill or a non-university, because not everyone has to go to university.
mhm,
I think it's, I mean, people need plumbers. There's, oh my gosh, you can get so much money driving a truck right now. It's amazing how much money they'll throw. They'll pay for all your schooling and everything. So, and all the schooling for truck driving right now, most of it's virtual. So
mhm,
this is already kind of happening. That's for truck driving. Of course, you obviously have to get into a truck eventually, but to get the CDL license, a lot of that stuff is all virtual. So it's already starting it's already there. Podcasting, I think, is just another element for their operation.
mhm.
But
That's true.
speaking of controversial, let's get into number 6, Tim, because this is one of yours. I think I added a little bit to this, but I think it all applies.
Yeah, I'm not gonna read what you added to. No, I'm kidding. Of course I will. Of course I will. So I'm going to caveat this with today that we are recording this is January the 12th of 2021. So President-elect Joe Biden will have a podcast similar to the Roosevelt Fireside Chats, which I will, naturally offer my services up to produce because I'm good like that. And Kyle says every politician in 2021, running in 2022 or not, starts a podcast. All of them, they all start a podcast. Now, I don't know how old. Well, I know how old Kyle is. Kyle's the same age as I am, but I remember hearing about the fireside chats, and that was
Yep.
happening during the Great Depression, and that really helped out the country. And it was done over radio. It was, oh, gee, it was audio only. Oh my God!
What a
And
novel time.
and it worked. It it was before Apple because Apple didn't invent podcasting or radio. That was Al Gore. No, I'm kidding.
Tony
But
rolled over in his grave.
exactly. But those fireside chats, I've talked with my grandparents about that when they were alive, and that really helped the country through that time. It was a very tough time. Go through your history books and all that good stuff, or listen to it on a podcast where people talk about the fireside chats. Which, hey, that's a good idea for a podcast. But I
Yeah.
think that it's going to we're going to see the politicians here in 2021, and it's going to start with the top because you already have Michelle Obama has her podcast. What would be a great guest? The former president Barack Obama on there, and to have these world leaders have already been on podcasts before, but this one I think is going to be started up by Joe Biden, by President-elect Joe Biden, and it's going to be in the vein of those fireside chats because guess what? Joe is 76, 77 years old. So, he might have heard one or two of those. And it's a possibility that he might have, he was a kid at the time, but um, he knows the effect that can have on a population. So I think that's going to be coming out here in 2021. And, I agree with Kyle in that, all the politicians out there are going to need to do a podcast. Now, after the election cycle, if they win, yay, their podcast keeps on going on. If they lose, then they're a pod wrecked. But they wouldn't be a pod wrecked if they would listen to Podwrecked. And they can do that and send us emails, podwrecked@gmail.com. So that way we can help them with their podcast. Can't help them with their platform or their politics, but we can help them with a great sounding podcast.
Love the plug. Love the plug. Considering how much money is in politics right now, why not? Yeah, we could definitely
Exactly.
build a fantastic podcast. And I think this is the case too, because I heard that Senator Ted Cruz had his own podcast out there. There was a local guy here in Spotsylvania County. His name is Nick Fairdas. He had his a podcast out, but he lost. Abigail Spanberger beat him in the race by just a hair, and he stopped podcasting in October. And then because he lost, he stopped podcasting. And I think what the thing with podcasting allows you to do, which I've seen with these politicians, these local politicians, especially let me keep saying that, local, right? Is they don't get anybody, there's no one interrupting them. There's nobody challenging their position. They get to say what they think directly, and you get to decide. What's more democratic than that? You get to hear it from their mouth what they think about certain situations, and then you can listen to their opponent and think about what they're standing for, and then you get to decide. You don't have to no filter. I think this is the key for future elections, is where you can hear one side, hear the other side, and decide for yourself. You don't have to listen to some radio or some talking head tell you, or the TV tell you what this is. These people can then bring the message directly to the voter. Wow, I think that's incredibly powerful. If you think about the President-elect Biden right now, when he goes and does these fireside chats, which I think is an excellent idea. Hopefully he'll do it. So Tim, you need to send him a letter and tell him that we'll help him out, and tell him to check out podrect.com, or gagglepod.com, where you can see all the things we can help him with. That What's the better way? I mean, how many people tune in to a news conference on TV, or see it or hear like a soundbite on the radio? They don't get the full thing. But I can download an episode and listen to it at my leisure in the privacy of my own home. That's kind of a big thing. Then you can hear it from his mouth. So then when he says something and then he doesn't do it, you can go, wait a minute, on his podcast, he said this, but then he didn't do that. When you hear the news people say something the opposite, or you hear some pundit say the opposite, you're like, no. He said this on his podcast and you're not telling the truth. And you can decide for yourself. Wow, what a concept. Decide for yourself. Use your own brain. I know it's 2021. We thought about things in 2020. This is the year of changing things. Changing the thing, I think, is politicians finally getting out of their own way and saying what they're going to do on a podcast. Why not? It's direct to consumer. Can't beat that. It's D2C. But that brings us into the other bizarre thing in number 5. And number 5 is what I've already seen happening for the past couple of years. But wow, already 2020, the end of 2020 and into 2021 have already seen this starting to take place. The podcast that just came out recently called The Oyster. And The Oyster is a podcast produced where high level like actors you would recognize are in it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're starting to think that it's like, well, what actors would I be thinking of? And it's something that you cannot. It's just weird that you think a podcast would have high star power, but it can. And this is the year I think that Hollywood continues to prototype their new TV and movie content within podcasting and using real podcast or real actors, A, B, C level actors to push out their very cheap, very easy to produce story ideas to see whether or not they have merit. And if they do, it's almost like a minimal viable product for Hollywood. And then if they do, they can then turn around and produce a uh, uh, full blown production out of it. This is the Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu concept, kind of micronized into the Audible space. And we already saw this with shows like Homecoming with Julia Roberts. Homecoming jumped from a podcast to an Amazon Prime 2 seasons. You can imagine the dollar signs that went with that. This is the year that I think this is the tidal wave year. I think that all because actors are sitting around, the movies aren't being made. So what do they got to do? They need work. Wouldn't you love your audio drama to have Julia Roberts? Oh my gosh, she's not doing anything right now and she would like to do some stuff to stay relevant. This is the perfect time to call her agent. And I hear Tim is looking for audio drama work too. You want to call his agent? His name's Kyle Bondo. Hit me up at poddirect@gmail.com and I will negotiate a great fee for you to get him to work on your show. Tim, what do you think as a former recovering actor yourself? What do you think of this prediction?
Well, Kyle, I have to say that the check bounced and the coffee that you sent me wasn't up to snuff. So I'm going to have to end this episode right now, and I'm going to turn off my microphone. And thank you very much. It's been interesting working with you.
Sorry, I got PayPal, man. We'll figure it out.
Oh, I'm back. Oh, so yeah, you have an industry that got ground to a halt, and they what has worked in the past for them is now it's not working for them now. You're not going to the theaters anymore. I know the theaters in town here are anemic at best. If they get anything in there, and Hollywood is hurting from that. Oh, poor Hollywood. They've made billions off of us, and now they're getting to feel the pinch of it. So I think they'll use it as as test audiences. Is this going to work? Is this what people want to do? It's very cost effective, and you can pull up a podcast and then pull it down right away in case that test subject bombs really bad, and nobody has to know about it. It's not an embarrassment. It's not like Kevin Costner's Waterworld that cost millions and millions. I think it was like the first $100 million film or something like that. And it bombed in the box office. And that's an embarrassment that Kevin Costner is always going to have for the rest of his life. People will know him for that, for Waterworld. And, for Robin Hood, where he didn't use a British accent,
Like,
all that kind of good stuff.
I'm a sailor. I thought Waterworld was a really good movie.
Well, I thought it was good too, but it bombed in the box office.
Oh, it's definitely one you make fun of, but I get it. Yeah, I get it when you have those bombs. This is a way to definitely, sneak one past. If it doesn't not very good, no one will know.
And if it's excellent, then you can go, well, see, obviously the stuff works, and we're geniuses, and we only asked 100,000 people if they'd go watch something like this, be interested in it. Yeah, they would. Boom. Let's make a web series, or let's make an exclusive to Amazon to this, and make our millions and billions of dollars again. So you're seeing Hollywood change their tune, just like a lot of things in podcasting is changing our tunes. They're going to have to come to us, and we're all primed and ready for it. And yes, Kyle is my agent, so he only gets 15%.
Yeah, I'll take it. So you think about this podcast, The Oyster. It It's not good. Well, it's okay. I don't like the writing is kind of and the direction is kind of but it stars like big people. I mean,
Mhm.
it's got Carla Gugino. She's from The Haunting of Hill House and The Haunting of Bly Manor on Netflix. That's the big. It stars Logan Browning. She's from Netflix Dear White People. It stars Giancarlo Esposito. That's the guy from Breaking Bad and the guy who's in The Mandalorian right now, which is really hot. It's got Keith David in it. Everyone knows Keith David from Community and from The Thing. These are big stars. These aren't little tiny stars. That has big time production value behind it because of the amount of people that are in it that are people you recognize.
Mhm.
And that is an interesting change to the way podcasting has been done, where you maybe get a one A or B or C celebrity in it, not a whole all star cast. And this, I think, is the big deal that Hollywood is realizing that not only do their actors need work, but this is an excellent way to prototype, like you said, a will the oyster be? I mean, I'm sure when the oyster becomes a TV show, considering what talent's in it, if it gets the
Mhm.
kind of standing it gets, it's not a bad drama, but maybe it's just not for me. But it has some elements that are pretty good. The acting is when the actors come on,
Mhm.
they're good, so they bring their star power to the podcast. It's just that it's interesting to see this level. Imagine how much this cost. How much did that
Mhm.
cost to make? That podcast must be super expensive. But then again, compared to a TV or movie, that's probably a drop in the bucket.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh
I
yeah.
think that's the way it goes. Well, Tim, bring us into number 4. We're about to get extraterrestrial here.
Well, E.T. was one of my favorite films from the 1980s. But so number 4 is, and I think we're going to have this happen to us in March of this year from
Oh,
Podfest, the first space podcast based in outer space will be started. I say by SpaceX. I think they're going to put somebody up in the International Space Center or space station, or it will be Space Force. It'll be some space cadet from Space Force out in outer space talking about things all space all the time. But we're going to have our first podcast, Interstellar, which will be fantastic. I think SpaceX is going to be the guys to do it because I mean they're the only game in town. NASA's not really launching a whole lot up there, but SpaceX is proving that a commercial company like that, a non government company like that can put people can put butts in the seats in outer space. So why wouldn't they want to start a podcast about it and then base that podcast in outer space? It's really easy to do. You have enough recording stuff up there. They're recording, gamma rays and those 5G rays that are coming down from outer space and from planet Naboo that are hitting us and changing our mental think up or makeup there. So yeah, I think we're going to have our first interstellar podcast in outer space, and I think here's the crazy thing. I know we tried to do it in 2020 with Podfest Global. I think this is the year that Podfest Global actually gets in contact with the International Space Station, and we have a live feed to them, and we're doing a podcast right then and there. And Chris, make it happen, dude. Get Antarctica and get ISS, and we take over the world.
that is awesome. I love this prediction. Hashtag Space Force. This is I'm totally on board with this one. I don't think I'm gonna say any more about this. I would love to see this happen. So yes, yeah, Chris Kermisos, that's $100 for the idea. So we take it in Bitcoin, by the way. So number three, the content wars heat up as media companies start buying up podcasters, podcast networks, podcast content, or any other audio content not nailed down or copyrighted. Tim, what do you think of? I think I think this is part and parcel to. Now, I've been talking about the content wars for a while. I think
Mhm.
as Amazon becomes a new player in these new collection of, I have a theme running through some of my predictions, but the content wars I think are going to get crazy, and this is where I believe they're going to start snatching up podcasters for their little networks, and media companies start consolidating some of their stuff based upon their whatever their bend is. Like Wondery was going down the true crime world, and then Wondery got bought. So it's like one of those kind of things where you start thinking about, if you have a couple friends who are podcasting and you want to start a network about similar podcast topics, and you guys are good at it, who knows? You might just corner the market on a niche that an Amazon or a Google or an Apple or a Spotify will snatch up for a lot of money. What do you think of that one, Tim?
And I think all those companies can contact us at podrect@gmail.com. And we would be happy to be the first upper echelon of podcasts about podcasting to help you survive your podcast, to make it big with Amazon or Google, Disney Plus. I'll take Disney Plus. I don't mind. That's fine by me. I can watch Frozen 1, Frozen 2, and Frozen 3 just as much as any man out there.
We made a man out of you.
Exactly. The content wars are already there. I think how it affects us little guys, and we have a chip on our shoulder as the independents, as the quote unquote little guys and all that kind of good stuff. But I think the challenge is to be ready if it happens to you. Have all your ducks in a row. Have the legal stuff hashed out. Don't look at a contract and go, I don't know what that means. I don't have a lawyer. I'm going to go look for a lawyer, in the yellow pages or on Google search, and Google is coming to you saying, hey, we want your stuff up here. Oh, you're going to look for a lawyer? Well, we're going to, in your Google search, have the lawyer that is going to work for us actually represent you. Because most people, when they do a Google search, they look at the first page. They don't look at the second or the third page. So be ready, be prepared for that to happen. If that's something that you want to get involved in, now's the time to do it. While the getting is good, get in now. A lot of people say, the best time to get in podcasting was in 2004. And right now, guess what? I'm looking at the time, and the time always tells me it's right now.
Right now.
So right now is before these content wars blow by you and you get locked out of it. Now's the time to be planning your stuff, to be producing your stuff, and to making that content fantastic, and to avoid pod wrecking your show.
Love it. Which is weird because this podcast is extremely long. Where number 2, I go the opposite direction, which is content gets even shorter to support smart speaker content exclusively. And most big podcasters will have to have a shorty version of their shows to adapt to this trend. And I've already seen a lot of my favorite podcasters have this, where they have like their long form show they do normally with guests or audio clips or what have you. And then all of a sudden they have like a briefing or a minute or some sort of tiny little show that fits nicely into the smart speaker space, so they can be added to a flash briefing or what have you. And I've seen this trend happen a lot towards the end of 2020, where a lot of very popular shows that became even more popular because of the everyone's in home, and as the curve kicked back and people started listening back to podcasting again because their commutes were over, where suddenly the short shows started popping up everywhere. Like, why is my favorite podcaster who talks for an hour and a half suddenly have a 3-minute episode out? You listen to 3-minute episodes, and it's like, oh, I want more. See, there it is. That's the reason. That's the reason. Make it easy to consume for people who are new, and make it easy to fit in a speaker. What do you think about that, Tim?
I'm going to keep my comment short. Yes.
Yes. Perfect. That'll fit perfect in a speaker. Yes. I think that's the best one. And then last but not least, we finally reached, after all that, number 1. Tim, tell us what our number 1 prediction for 2021 is for Podrect.
And this prediction is for all of you out there that are listening to us. Now, we'd like to, we had conversations about, should we put out extra shows so that way we can hit, a certain number, and we told you guys we're not going to do that. We're not going to put out extra shows just to hit a certain number, some abstract, idea of what success is. We're going to put out good content in each and every episode. And we actually had a recount this year. Kyle did a recount for us. So last year we were saying, 50 episodes. Well, folks, we thought we didn't hit that. We actually did hit 50 last year. So we got our 50 last year. We're doing 75, not 75 more. We're going to hit 75 total episodes by the end of 2021. And if that means that, Kyle has to bring me in here kicking and screaming to knock out an episode, you'll hear all the kicking and screaming. But folks, we're doing it because we care about what we do with this podcast. We started off with a mission to help you survive your podcast. And that's from episode number one to episode right now that you're listening to. And it'll continue to be our mission, is to help you survive your podcast. Because here's the thing, back about, 4 or 5 years ago, we weren't around doing this kind of stuff. Kyle wasn't, doing the meetups, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. He had to learn the hard way. I had to learn the hard way. And we screwed up a lot of things. But now that we're here and we're knocking this out of the ballpark for you, we're here for you. So that way you don't have to make the same mistakes that we made. You can make your own mistakes, make them beautiful, make them huge. But the stuff that we've already learned and already messed up on, we want to help you avoid that kind of pain and that kind of agony. So this year, 75 episodes, I think we can do it. Kyle?
Well, not only that, but we're going to up it up a notch. We're going to take it up a notch. We have both Tim and I have recently got ourselves connected to our local library, and the local library over the 2020 era time, they already had it planned, but the 2020 kind of messed up their schedule. They finally finished a studio space, an AV soundproof room, which is magnificent. It's beautiful. It's called Idea Space. And their sound booth with Rodecaster microphones and full audio suite. He's got a green screen and a camera, and it's all free because it's county resources that you pay for with your tax dollars. And as long as you register and get badged and you're agree to the rules of the space, you get to use it for a 2-hour slot when you reserve the space. And the sound booth is what we're going to use to produce future episode of PodRec. We're going to do it from the booth to try it out because we've seen it. And now we're like, it's like a brand new shiny toy. We got to take that Porsche around the block and see how the rims spin and the engine revs. It's going to be cool. And that's going to be definitely something that we're going to do in 2020. I mean, in 2021, in 2019, 2020, we did like a live from a Starbucks. We did a couple different weird stuff. We tried different audio platforms. We've done a lot of different experiments. We're going to continue to experiment with different things that you can do on your own that you didn't think you could do. I don't have soundproof stuff in your house. Did you know your library might? Have you even looked? I mean, you'd be surprised what kind of resources might just be outside your front door. That as the world wakes up again and is allowed to escape its space again, the Idea Space has only allowed 4 people in the building at a time. So it's pandemic friendly. You're in a booth, can't be more isolated than that. That's pretty good. And the sound quality in there is just it's beautiful. Tim, I mean, you and I both have looked at this space.
Mm-hmm.
I think, how many episodes do you think we can do from this space? We're at least going to do one, but that's definitely something coming in. I predict we will record from this space. That's a special. That's a little extra, little cherry on the top for our predictions.
But it helps our local community out, because we were talking about localization before, and these are things that if it's not in your community, ask. You pay taxes. I pay taxes. I pay Kyle's taxes. No, I don't pay Kyle's taxes, but we all pay taxes. We all put into the pot. These are things that, it is 2021. We need to be asking from our local government and all that kind of stuff to get this stuff set up for us. And if it's not set up for us, maybe we can help out by getting it set up. Maybe they just lack the vision or the knowledge on how to set this kind of stuff up, and it benefits the whole community. We're going to have a bunch of podcasts coming out of good old Fredericksburg, Virginia. Never thought I'd say that. We're going to have a bunch of good podcasts coming out of this locality because we have this set up now. And there's going to be a lot of good video coming out of it. They've got a 3D printer there. They've got a ton of stuff here that, because somebody had the vision to go ahead and do it, it's happened. You have that vision for where you live. Go ahead, research it. If it's not there, make it happen.
And we started with meetups. We started with meetups of just teaching people how to podcast. And now we're moving to understanding this studio space that we'll be able to teach other people how to do this too. Because knowing what the space is different than knowing how to use the space. We talked about this earlier in the show that, you can explain to me all the tech, but until I walk into that room and understand what the sound acoustics are going to be like and how to use the equipment effectively so they don't like spend an hour and then don't have a recording because no one hit record, which I guarantee will probably happen once because it always does. Mm-hmm. But I think this is kind of the trend or the theme of this entire episode for our 2021 prediction show, which is 2020. That was the year that we had to think about changes because we knew it was coming. We knew the changes were coming to us. We had to think about those changes. 2021 is the year that we change how we think. So take that internally and think about what you can do now that you've sat around and thought about some stuff. This is the year to now put those changes into effect. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of PodRect. 20 predictions of what we think is going to happen in 2021. And we've done pretty good the past 2 years. And if you don't believe us, please go to podrect.com and click the predictions link and see how we did. Both 2019 and 2020 are there, and we have a pretty good track record. It's almost like we know what's about to happen. Almost. Though Podrodamus definitely is got a crystal ball into the podcasting industry. But if you don't agree, or maybe you think there's a prediction that maybe we missed, please send us an email at podrect@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. We'd also like to know what you think will help you survive your podcast. And send us an email and tell us how we can make that happen for you, and we'll turn it into an episode. That's a promise. So podrect@gmail.com and let us know. Until next time, take care.
Well, stop taking speed, dude.
I said I'd do it, and I did it. It was hard.
do you need to spend some time on my couch here? Dude, it's been like 2 hours. Oh my God. Do we have to end it?
We could have done 20 more predictions.
20 more. Okay, let's go. I've got 30 listed right here that you threw out, dude.
So many predictions we could have done. Because we didn't even talk about the aliens. We didn't talk about any of that stuff that has to do with podcasting.
Well, and I had, you didn't want to talk about the whole flat Earth stuff and how we didn't land on the moon. You refused to talk about that again. Are we done?
I hope so.
Are we done yet?
Okay. I think we can be.
Can we be done?
I want to go to bed.
I'm going to give you a virtual hug, and then you can go to bed. You'll feel better. All right. Okay. Here's your virtual hug.
I feel better now.
Good.
Sleep.
Now we're done.
Have a good year.
2021.
This podcast is part of the GagglePod Network. Find more podcasts like this at gagglepod.com.